All right, go ahead.
Okay, officially call to order West Linn Sustainability Advisory Board at 6:03. I'm gonna assume we don't have anyone for public comments.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, let's do a quick approval of the October minutes. Anybody want to propose that?
I didn't have any comments on them.
Yeah, move to approve.
Second.
I second.
All right. So we are now ready with in a quick minute for you folks from Parametrics to check in and tell us what's up.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Victoria, and nice to see you all again. I have another quick PowerPoint for you all tonight, but before we dive in, I'll have Tracy introduce herself since she was not at the last meeting.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tracy Lunsford, and I'm working with Grace on the project for you for the city with Parametrics. And Greg, we met before. Nice to see you again.
Tracy.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share screen, and I hope you all will bear with me as I remember how to do this on WebEx. So give me one moment.
That's okay.
How does that look? Are you all seeing the presentation mode or still just the slide mode?
I see the slides on the side.
Yep.
Okay, let me try one more time.
Hey, it's back to you, Grace.
How about now? How does that look?
Looking good.
Looks good.
All right, perfect. Okay, so here is an overview of kind of our status update and where we are. So we have completed an initial review of 71 strategies that we found in the Sustainable West Linn Strategic Plan from your list of kind of priorities and previous work plan, and from our initial meeting with Dylan and the city manager. So we had 71 actions to review, and of that list, we have boil down kind of the top recommended priorities for the city, and that includes 5 city operations strategies. So those would be things that relate to the city's operations, like their buildings, and then 3 community-wide strategies that would be more related to businesses and community involvement and broader education. For this review, we primarily focused on prioritizing greenhouse gas mitigation strategies that fall under that kind of climate action umbrella that we talked about a little bit last time. And then we also highlighted 10 priority strategies that we would have recommended, but we feel that West Linn has already made significant progress, and some of them are ongoing, but we've included those here tonight as well.
Excellent.
All right. So strategies, after we kind of went through that initial review, we looked at these 3 criteria as the main way to prioritize. So staff capacity and costs needed for implementation. Knowing that West Linn has limited capacity, we wanted to focus on items that we felt like were most doable. The greenhouse gas emission reduction potential. So how big of an impact could the strategy have on reducing emissions if it was implemented? And then any resiliency co-benefits. And I added those definitions to the slide again as well for review.
Okay.
And we're going to walk through each of the strategies one by one here in a moment. So I'll keep going, but feel free to jump in anytime if anyone has questions. So with that said, here is the 5 recommended city operations strategies. And this table shows what the strategy is and the source, whether it came from, like we said, the sustainability plan, your priorities, council goals, or project meeting. And there's a couple things that we threw in as recommendations just based on our experience. And then we have some notes about status as well. So this is kind of the overview. We are going to talk through each of these one by one. So I'll just give you a moment to kind of look at this table, and then we'll go through the following slides. Okay, I'm going to move us along. So the first one here that we want to talk about is developing a policy regarding the purchase of alternative fuel, electric, and hybrid vehicles, including a cost-benefit analysis for future purchases. And this strategy appeared in the sustainability plan, and I think was on your radar as well. This wording is exactly how it is listed as a council goal from 2024 council goals. So we feel there's a lot of alignment between the priorities, and this is a good stepping stone that the city can take, and we could help develop this policy in such a way where it could start with kind of looking at what are any immediate opportunities for fuel replacements, like looking at renewable diesel, which is a drop-in replacement for traditional diesel that tends to be affordable, or looking at replacing vehicles as they're aging out, recognizing that the city doesn't have endless money to go and buy all new vehicles, but as vehicles are getting replaced anyway, to prioritize those electric or hybrid vehicles wherever possible. So we feel like this is very achievable given those kind of constraints or the reality of what this policy might look like. And since it's already in progress, something that makes sense to prioritize kind of focusing on and moving forward with. And if anyone wants to jump in with questions as we're going, you're welcome to, or we can kind of run through everything and then discuss afterwards. So the next one we want to talk through is considering sustainability in the design and construction of the new Public Works and Parks Operations building. So this is something that is also already being considered, but we feel like it's a great opportunity to look for additional funding or grant resources that might be able to do even more regarding sustainability. There's a lot of opportunities with new construction in particular to make buildings more energy efficient and increase kind of the overall sustainability of the design that are often more cost effective with new construction versus having to remodel old buildings, although that's something that's on our list as well. But this seems like a great opportunity to build off of another project that the city is already working on and leverage that existing work to kind of see if we can make additional improvements.
Grace, I have a question. It's Victoria.
Yeah.
Would this apply to the recreation building that kind of got sidelined because of lack of funds?
That's a great question, Victoria. I think this one is really focused on that Public Works and Parks building that is moving forward. Although I think this concept of considering sustainability in new buildings in general would be a great thing for the city to think about. But I think we wanted to start with kind of what's a good next step. And given that this project is moving forward and the other one might be a little bit more on hold, perhaps that's a little bit of a back burner. And I'll let Dylan jump in if he has anything to add.
I think, yeah, that pretty much covers it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I have a question about that, just with regard to the challenge of actually implementing sustainable design elements when it actually comes time to make decisions about financing. Because my impression is that these are kind of seen as extras, as options that could be pursued, but because of the additional cost, they oftentimes are then not actually adopted in the final building design and construction. Yeah. And so I'm just curious about like whether you have any suggestions about ways in which we might be able to participate in that process to help people realize the savings that will also be kind of tied into what might be at the outset initial expense.
Yeah, that's a great point and question. And I think one thing we would definitely recommend is while the city has us hired to support the city, we can certainly look at any grant or incentive or funding programs that could help lower those upfront costs and make it a little bit more feasible, and also provide some of that information that shows that while some of these energy efficiency or renewable energy projects might have a higher capital cost up front, they could yield savings or reductions in cost over time. So we think that's an area where we might be able to add some additional support and hopefully could find some funding that would help the city take some actions that it might not otherwise be able to take.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. So the next one, completing LED lighting upgrades in all city facilities. This is one that the city has already also begun to make progress on, but it's a really good kind of low-hanging fruit option that is effective and relatively lower cost item to do. So we just want to continue to elevate this and keep it on the list as upgrades are happening and lighting is getting replaced in city facilities to continue to prioritize that.
Grace, do you know which buildings already have the LED lighting? I know that the city hall does. I guess I'm assuming that the library does. But do you know where the city could actually begin taking action on the LED lighting front?
I do not know that at this time. I think I'm not sure if Dylan has an exact answer on this one, but that could be a next step for looking at this action, is evaluating that. And I did not mention that at the beginning, but we'll circle back on this later, that one of our next steps will be kind of looking at what are the individual next steps and easiest implementation options for each of these strategies.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you as well. This one, it will be kind of along the similar lines of looking for additional funding and prioritizing opportunities for public building, HVAC, so heating, ventilation, and air conditioning upgrades, and solar installations. This is another one where we believe there's a lot of opportunity, and I think funding is going to be the main constraint. So really focusing on looking for funding and seeing where there are opportunities or there might be grants available that would make it easier for the city to move forward and implement. And I know in the sustainability plan, there's a strategy around auditing all of the public buildings. And I think, we're not sure that a full audit is necessarily necessary given the limited capacity, but using some kind of prioritization process to think about if there is funding available, where's there going to be the greatest impact or the greatest need. And this could also have to do with when are updates already happening on buildings. Go ahead, Victoria.
I help run the community garden, and sometime last year I was talking to Megan Big John, and she suggested that if I was trying to get electric utensils tools for the garden to use, that we could possibly figure out how to have a grant for those and for either the money that it takes to run the electricity over from the ball field to the shed that we have where things are stored, or solar, or some way to do it. So I don't know if you could help us know which grants to apply for. One of the other directors is willing to do that grant right.
Excellent. Yeah, I think part of our scope of work is helping the city look for funding. So I think it's just going to be a matter of working with you all and with Dylan to figure out what are kind of the top priorities for the hours and time that we have available. But I think we can certainly help look at funding overall for these initiatives and point you all in some good directions.
There are over 60 gardeners who would be heavily influenced by by using this whole system if it were electric, and then go home and do it there too. And it's part of the park system.
Awesome. Thank you. And it's great to hear that there are folks in the community that have that grant writing enthusiasm or experience or interest. That's something that we'll talk about a little bit later in this slideshow, but that's always a very valuable skill or interest area if folks in the community are willing to help apply for grants and try and bring in funding. And then this action around evaluating opportunities to establish ongoing sustainability funding without diminishing the city's ability to deliver essential services. We know that West Linn has some capacity constraints and has a lot of things that they need to continue doing for the community, but we also know that it's important to continue to build capacity and momentum around sustainability over time. So I think, again, taking this kind of as a reasonable first step to look at what are opportunities and how can we support that while we're here working with the city.
And Grace, would that mean that the city would be looking at ways that it might be able to hire a part-time sustainability coordinator or a full-time sustainability coordinator, just thinking about sustainability funding, or are you thinking specifically about different kinds of on-the-ground projects, or both?
I think for this one, we're really thinking about, are there different revenue streams or finance models or kind of financial management models that could allow the city to start to put some funds towards sustainability efforts and start to build that over time. I think the eventual goal would be to hire more, to have more capacity for it, but first the city will need the funding in order to do that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So next up, we have the 3 community-wide strategies. The first one was on your priority list around working with local businesses and developers to encourage EV charging stations. And then there are a couple strategies here around increasing opportunities for community members and businesses to share and repurpose unwanted products or create and distribute a directory with repair services in West Linn. And we'll go through each of these as well. So this one we see as another great opportunity. Transportation is always a good area for improvement with sustainability and climate action. And we know that West Linn is already working on installing some EV chargers, and this is a great opportunity to get more businesses and developers and community members involved. And there also have been quite a few kind of grants or funds available, rebates and incentives that could help lower the cost or make it a little bit easier. So this is one that we think makes sense to continue to prioritize and build off of the great progress. And I think, Dylan, if you want to mention any status updates on this one from the city's perspective.
Just kind of waiting on the mayor. The mayor was going to do that with me, and so just kind of waiting for his schedule to open up.
Excellent. And then this one, and oh, go ahead, Victoria.
Oh, I was just excited that the mayor wants to do that with you. Yay.
So this strategy and the next one are really mostly about reducing and reusing and encouraging less consumption and waste in the community. And we also see this strategy and the next one as great opportunities for you all as SAB members or other interested community members to get involved and help with this kind of strategy. So this could look like education or talking to community members and business owners and helping to kind of promote this concept. And similarly for the next one, thinking about creating a directory with repair services in West Linn. That's something where SAB members such as yourselves or other volunteers could support the city with making this happen and getting it posted on the website. So that would be a way to add a little bit of additional capacity to the city to help move another good thing forward.
So I guess I'm just curious about when you're talking about repurposing products, what kinds of products are you imagining? You know, as opposed to, obviously clothes and furniture, et cetera. But since a lot of those can already be given away to thrift stores, I guess I'm just curious about, in a more granular way, what you're considering.
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't have a whole lot of specific examples for this one yet, but I think some things that come to mind are kind of like creative craft spaces where you might take old, semi-broken or semi-good appliances or metal materials or things like that and turn them into something new. Could be for craft projects or art projects. Let's see. Perhaps things that could be useful for like composting or for gardens. Tracy, does anything else come to mind for you?
Finding my unmute button. Yeah, and then there's also share is in there too. So the sharing community could be something that could be built out, whether it's neighborhood tool sharing or things like that too.
And I know that the Robinwood Station has had kind of like repair fairs and kind of invited people in for a morning or an entire day to kind of repair different household items, bringing in people with the kinds of skills needed. And that's the sort of thing that could be done more broadly around the city. The library also has a tool library, which kind of ties into the kinds of things that you're describing as well.
That's excellent. The tool library is super wonderful, and the repair fairs is actually something that's on our list of progress that's already happening, because we definitely recommend that.
Great.
So speaking of that, great foreshadow, Greg. Here's some of the additional strategies that are either completed or West Linn is making ongoing progress on. So maybe I'll just give everyone a minute to read through this list, and if anyone has any questions or comments, we can discuss versus reading them all out loud. Mike, it looks like you're speaking, but I'm not hearing your audio.
How does this sound?
Yep, that sounds great.
Okay. Yeah, my question was concerning the 8th item there, upgraded streetlights to LEDs. I'm not sure if you're aware, but I believe the majority of the streetlights in the city are owned and operated by the electric utility. So I guess that would need to be considered with that item. Maybe you already have, but just wanted to state that so that we're all on the same page.
Yes, thank you. Dylan mentioned that, and this is referring to a lot of work that has already been done with the utility and West Linn to upgrade streetlights to LEDs. So that's referring to work that has already been completed.
Okay, great.
And now, Greg, it looks like you're on mute.
I think I would include the community gardens as like a strategy that has been actually implemented and is, 60 folks. It would be great to have more space, but it's an example of one of the things that the city has been able to implement.
Excellent. Yes, and this is by no means a comprehensive list of all of the great work. I know there's a lot of excellent things that you all have done as well. These were items that we had kind of risen to the surface as priorities, and then upon discussion with Dylan, realized a lot of great work has already been done. We do want to note that we would continue to recommend prioritizing the things on this list that are ongoing. And we know some of these around education and providing information, you all have put effort into making materials for the website and things along those lines that could continue to be updated. Yeah, go ahead, Victoria.
I wonder if anyone knows if the streetlights, when they're upgraded, are structured so that the light only goes down and not up to bother migrating birds.
I do. So sorry. I do think they generally do. They are thinking about that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. I'd like to get my neighbors to turn their lights off, their outdoor floodlights. But...
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have a couple more slides. And first, we'll go through our next steps, and then we have a few slides to share some of the findings from the skills mapping survey that most of you or all of you filled out. So as I mentioned, our next steps are kind of to further define what the next steps and achievable options would be for each of those strategies we talked through in collaboration with Dylan and all of your feedback. And then we're going to continue to kind of do some further analysis to look for what are those relevant funding or finance mechanisms that could help implement these strategies. what exactly would the city's role be, and where are there opportunities for SAB to support those strategies being implemented if you all are interested, and share some relevant examples from peer communities.
That's good.
And then in terms of the feedback from the survey, we got 6 responses. Probably no surprise to you all that the top response for your role is to support and advocate. We know that's kind of how your role as SAB is defined in the charter. But we also got some interest in these other roles or opportunities. And we just want to clarify, this would not necessarily be formal on behalf of the city, but just there are opportunities for you all in your roles as individuals and community members to continue to help educate and convene and implement. And I think Tracy has a little bit more to share on this one.
Yeah, also recognizing that you all are whole individuals and have huge lives outside of your role as an SAB member. And so one of the things that I do, for example, with the board that I volunteer on is I also carry a lot of those values and efforts through to my personal life and other efforts in my life too. And so there are lots of ways I think that through the other work that you're doing, you can also work in collaboration or consistently with West Linn's priorities. So that's kind of one way that you can take either educating or convening on into other places in your life too. Again, this is not an official capacity, right? It's just as part of your role as SAB members.
And in some of those strategies we talked about, like creating a directory of repair services or, potentially grant writing, those could be opportunities where you all as individuals might have more of a direct implementation role too. And that might be, again, not in the formal sense, but where you have the skills and interest and there is an opportunity to help move things forward. Next up, we want to highlight some of the areas where you all have kind of the strongest and greatest skills and experience, and some of your member background and experience that you all shared. And I think we talked about this a little bit at the last meeting, so probably no huge surprises, but you all have a lot of strength in these areas around data analysis and advocacy, natural areas and habitats, project management, and community outreach and education. And on the right of the slide is some of your specific backgrounds and experience. And then our final slide highlights some of the areas where you all indicated having kind of the least experience and somewhere to potentially look at or think about for potential recruitment in the future for additional SAB members. So I think project fundraising was one that rose to the surface that lots of folks did not indicate a lot of experience in. So both looking for funding and grant writing. And as we've talked about, those can be really helpful ways to bring in more capacity. Convening groups and volunteers, specifically working with local businesses and community groups or managing volunteers. Although, Victoria, I have a feeling that you do quite a bit of volunteer management at the garden. It looks like you're on mute, Victoria. Oh, sorry, Victoria, we missed you. I think you're still on mute.
Yeah. So
There you are.
really, there are only 3 volunteers. Those are the directors. Everybody else is a gardener. But we do wrangle them to do community projects within the garden. You're right.
Yes, wonderful. And then a couple technical areas, just electric appliance and EV charging stations and gas powered equipment. So we just wanted to share this back with you all in case it's helpful as you're thinking about the skills that you all have and areas you might want to look at building or finding in the community when you're thinking about recruitment. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing. That wraps up our slideshow for today. And we're happy to answer any additional questions or discuss any of the things that we've shared.
I just want to thank you. This is really helpful. You're providing
Definitely.
exactly what I hoped would happen. So I'm very grateful.
Thank you, both of you. It's heartening.
Did you have any overall reactions to the strategies that we listed? Do they feel consistent with your with your thoughts about the things that the city could be doing?
I think that what I would notice were just some things that were not kind of included in it, including the just the revision of the tree code in an effort to really try to maintain the integrity of the urban canopy, particularly in the face of House Bill 2001 and the kind of building that's happening on already existing building sites and with infill. And then I guess the other thing is, in the initial presentation, you said something about tying these things into community resilience and wondering how you would see these linked into that process of enhancing the community's ability to respond to ice storms, floods. But let's hope it never happens, an earthquake. But the more the kinds of things that we've been running into in the last 5 years, which are likely to probably increase. So maybe just the resilience question to begin with, and then, thinking about like what role should we play with regard to natural resources?
Yeah, that's a great question, Greg, and I'll take a first pass at answering and then let Tracy weigh in as well. I think first I just want to say that we were really trying to strategically prioritize a small number of things that seem like they
Mhm.
have achievable next steps, knowing that there's a lot of really important goals and strategies that you all want to move forward. And so I think that was our focus, and keep that in mind. In terms of resilience, a lot of the strategies we've recommended for the city operations do have resilience benefits, anything to do with increasing the building energy efficiency or HVAC can make buildings more resilient to extreme temperatures, and anything to do with renewable energy is also helpful for backup power and emergency preparedness. So I think those are small steps, but it doesn't necessarily get at the greater needs of the community at large, and everything that the community would need in the face of a natural disaster. And I think that's a whole nother kind of can of worms of strategies that are needed, but this could still start making some progress in that direction. Tracy, is there anything you would add to that?
I think you covered it really well. These are resilience as additional benefits, not resilience as primary benefit, right? So our lens was really looking at items that were had small next steps that were achievable with existing resources for the city and had climate impact, so reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and then also with an eye toward the resilience as a secondary benefit. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Victoria.
Thank you.
Is this why there's no mention of the question of what's going on in the Fifth Street development of the wetlands? Is because
Yeah,
it's
so go ahead.
no, it's just because it's not low hanging fruit.
Yes, so I think to answer both the piece around trees and around the wetland development, I think it does get at this kind of what is really achievable next steps that the city can implement and have kind of a direct role in. I think it's clear that the tree code is a priority for all of you, and in your role to advocate to city council, that certainly can be within your purview. And it seems like that's something that you all have already done. So perhaps, I'm not sure exactly what the next exact steps are there, but again, we were really thinking about what is going to have the biggest impact, where it does seem like there's feasible next steps, looking mostly at this lens of climate action and greenhouse gases. We know there's a lot of priorities and they're all really important, but got to start somewhere. So I think, again, this is what we're recommending for the city to prioritize. And I would say it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly what you all are prioritizing. I know you're going to talk about your work plan tonight, but if you can find some alignment and ways that they can work together, I think we would recommend that.
Okay, thank you. If there are no more
Is your presentation I guess, has that been sent to Dylan, and then Dylan could be able to forward that to us
We'll
just to have
send it
on
over.
hand?
Yeah, we'll send it over right now. Thank you.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, if there are no more questions, is that the last that you need our time for? Okay. Very
Okay.
grateful you're here. Very.
Thank you
Hi.
again.
Appreciative.
Mike, to your question, I was wondering, I didn't look at your full agenda. I'm not sure what you're planning, but would it be helpful to have a screenshot of those priority areas in order for you to refer back to in your conversation? I can take a real quick screenshot and put those in the chat if that's helpful.
Yes.
I
Okay.
don't think there is a chat enabled for
Oh,
this.
is there not? Okay. Well,
No.
Grace, I think just emailed it to Dylan, so
Yeah.
Dylan can email
Okay.
to all of you quickly then maybe.
Okay,
So you
that'll
can
work,
have
I
that in
think.
front of you. Okay.
I'll get it over in
Okay.
1 second.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Mhm. Um, okay, well, we could do a quick check-in for the members who are here. If you'd like to do that, or we could move on to reviewing the draft.
Don't mind doing a check-in.
Well, go for it, Mike.
Rachel and I went to the coast last weekend and had an opportunity to see some rather large waves, so that was nice.
Yeah.
We got to see some poor fella who maybe it was his first time there and didn't realize how big they could get, but he was standing out kind of on the edge of the rocks looking at the waves, and one moment he was dry and the next he was very wet.
Glad he wasn't swept in.
Yes.
Yeah, he wasn't close enough for that to have happened, but he was definitely in the splash zone.
Yeah.
But yeah, always nice to go out there and see the big waves.
Well, that's fun.
And I think our veggie garden is done for the season.
Yes. Yeah, I would have to say checking in that the community garden is done for the year, finally. Almost everybody has their plots covered with something for the winter, either as winter cover crop or mulch or some way that they're covered up and buttoned up. So,
We're still getting some lettuce and some beets, but not very much. The one thing that I wanted to mention is I got a note from Lisa Adado today that the climate protection program that had been passed a couple of years ago by the legislature and then was challenged by a group of utilities and an oil company and I think she said another dozen industrial facilities, and then was basically it was prevented from kind of being enacted in December. It has been reinstated after some changes in the rules. And let me just read one part of one announcement. Under the Climate Protection Program, Oregon's largest polluters, oil companies, gas utilities, large industrial facilities, must gradually reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. The restored program will cut 90% of climate pollution through a phased rollout. This will help us tackle our biggest pollution sources, improve our air quality, and create more clean energy jobs, said Meredith Conley, Director of Policy and Strategy at Climate Solutions. So that just happened today. And actually, it's great, given the likelihood that there won't be much federal support for climate action in the coming years, that Oregon has taken this particular move and has found a way to overcome the objections that had been raised earlier on to this kind of important piece of legislation.
yay.
Happy about that.
Isn't that 90% reduced by 2050?
2050, yeah.
Yeah. Kate,
Yeah, let's see what's going on with me. We actually kind of did some yard work today to finish getting our garden done, I guess, and we found a couple rogue cucumbers.
how big were they?
You know, they were decent. We've got 3 little kind of funny shaped ones and a few
Right.
red
Cool.
squash and things that were hiding underneath stuff. And let's see what else. I got involved at my kids' school at Trillium Creek helping with the art lit, and so that's been really fun. I was this last month helped, speaking of training volunteers, trained like over 30 parents to go into classrooms and do art lit with the kids, and it's
Great.
something that we're just bringing back post COVID that I guess had been there before and had gone away, and so that was really fun. So we studied Frida Kahlo as this right now, and then we're planning 2 more projects for this year, and that's been really fun to help bring back.
Tell me,
Thanks.
what is art lit in relation to Frida Kahlo?
It's very interesting to make that kid friendly. So, you know, we give a little bit of background on her, talking about her, you know, where she's from, her childhood, her polio, her accident that caused significant pain for her, and then how that influenced her as an artist, and then her style, looking at the coloring she used, and how the project we did with the kids was having them do self-portraits, but we had them really think about what they wanted to include in their backgrounds, because she tended to include things to express herself, and so we talked to them about different ways to express yourself and what you want to tell people about you through what you put around you, and it was really fun.
Fine.
Yeah, and I'm not an artist or like I don't have a background in art. It was just like an empty. I was like this, which is kind of how I ended up here too, I guess.
Well, that's fun. At least Greg? Greg?
I already spoke.
Oh, you did. Oh, yes, so you did. Dylan, how's that house painting?
The what's that? The house?
Yeah, how's the painting going?
Oh, the painting. Yeah, we beat the weather on that a little bit. There's still more to do. Still waiting for another nice break in time. And I am solo parenting tonight, so if I get distracted, that's why. But for the group, I did want to mention the Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities Act. The council passed some code related to that. It was a couple weeks ago, so I don't think it's fully enacted yet. But there was some requirements in there for EV charging for new development. There's some parking like changes, especially along like Highway 43, along bus lines. So there was just some related sustainability stuff there that got passed.
Good. Go council.
Nice.
Okay, so I guess we'll begin our review draft of the annual report. It's 6:45 now, so I don't think we should take more than 25 minutes to do this.
Okay. Yeah, we can try to make that quick. So I can pull up the report and share that. I've got so many windows open.
Did you type up the whole thing, Mike?
The report?
Yeah.
I mean, I started with the report that we did last year and adapted from there.
Thank you.
This is slow to open, but it's trying.
I've got a question. Dylan, when is the annual report due, particularly with regard to the new goals that we're having for 2025? Is it due in December or beginning of January?
The idea was for the CAGs to get the reports in by December 18th.
December 18th, okay.
So we had time to
Okay.
turn it around and get it to council before their goal setting, which I think is tentatively the first weekend. It's in the weekend on January.
Okay. I guess, given that, I would really strongly make sure that we get to the goal setting and have that pretty clearly in hand.
Yep. All right. So can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, it's pretty small.
Pretty small.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I can zoom in. That's, oh,
Oh,
that's better.
How's that?
that's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Okay,
Thanks.
perfect. All right. Yeah, so top stuff, I know here, we might want to talk about that soon. Other members listed here. Just a general overview of when we met, including a little talk about our review meeting on October 17th. I imagine that we often don't meet in December. I suppose that's something we could chat about as well, whether we want to this year or not. And then down into accomplishments for 2024. So the city hired a sustainability consultant, Parametrics, and they've already met with the city manager and Dylan twice. We can update this to just reflect this meeting because they've met with us twice now. I should mention that. Any comments on that item?
Oh, it's good.
No.
Okay. All right, renewed membership in the Columbia Willamette CCC. Dylan, that's true, right? I think last meeting you had said that this was renewed, so I want to make sure that that's still
I think so.
correct.
I have to double check again.
Okay. Then we've got the resolution for the phasing out of fossil fuel stuff. So the resolution 2024-2 was adopted on April 8th.
Yep.
That's cool. Charging locations recommended for EV charging stations. The city has been awarded grants to install chargers at the historic Willamette Falls area and at the library. I don't know if this is the right way to phrase this. I never know what to call that part of the city.
I don't know.
Downtown Willamette Falls Drive, historic downtown.
Historic West Linn?
Historic Willamette Main Street. That's what we
Yeah.
use.
There you go.
Historic Willamette Main
Main.
Street.
That makes sense to me.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect. Okay. We talked about the rec center, but that's kind of on hold. There was some work that Greg in particular had done in terms of neighborhood resilience.
I would be hesitant to say that we made any progress at all.
Did you?
I did get in touch with the folks from the food pantry about applying for climate resilience funding, and they had not yet heard as to whether or not they had gotten any funding or not. What surprised me, given Dylan's comment about the city having heard that they didn't get money for the adult community center. Do you remember when you were informed that you didn't get the funding, Dylan?
Yeah, we got notice that we were not selected for the ACC generator.
Do you think it's conceivable that the food pantry may still get that grant?
I have no idea. That would be nice if that was the case.
Yeah, but I think, saying that we didn't really even help them. I just kind of informed them about the grant, and then they pursued it.
All right. So maybe we just say that we helped the food pantry apply for the climate resilience grant.
Yeah, we didn't help them. We just told them about it.
Informed them of.
We informed them, yeah.
Greg, do you know what they were going for specifically?
They were going for enough generators to keep, like, I think 4 freezers in a refrigerator operating, however
That's
many that
right.
would be.
Yes.
So it was just the generators for the refrigerators and freezers.
Okay.
Anything else besides just saying that we provided some feedback on, is this the correct term for it? Natural hazards mitigation plan?
That's the right term. Yep.
You want to say anything about
Cool.
the tree code?
I don't know if anything really happened about the tree code.
You know, aside from us making 2 presentations to the city council.
Well, that's something.
Yeah.
Continue to encourage city council.
Um,
And we did engage in
I
that
like the
goal
idea.
setting. We engaged in that goal setting meeting with the city council last January.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it feels like so long ago.
And that was, you know, something that hadn't happened for a while.
I think they called it a joint working session.
Right.
And then encouraged of we want to be more specific about this item here. Encourage council to prioritize.
Attending council twice.
What about testified to city council about need
Tree code
to
revision. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Looks like we've got most everything.
Okay.
Okay.
I think then we left off here. Met with the transportation board to discuss opportunities for cooperation. I don't think much else came from that though.
No.
And then we maintained a presence at community events like the Old Time Fair and
Yeah.
Earth Day. All right, 2024 challenges. So this one here is basically just like we didn't have a full board. And then we've got this one, city regulations around chairperson term limits have required some creativity on our part. Chairperson term limits are set for 2 consecutive years, but only a limited number of members have expressed willingness to serve as chairperson. I think this is supposed to say, while existing chairpersons were willing to continue serving past the ends of their terms. I don't know if we want to say anything past that. It's not been too much of a problem, but
it makes it sound as though we continued to be chair people after our terms, which wasn't the case. Just the way that the sentence reads.
Yeah.
So this was not permissible?
It was not permissible.
okay, that work?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this one just concerns, I think we've only had council liaison present for a handful of meetings.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be 2025. All right, so goal setting for the coming year. Number 1, take advantage of the recently hired sustainability consultant to review already existing sustainability and climate action plans with the aim of proposing a course of action that could be pursued when the city hires part-time or full-time sustainability coordinator. Having a consultant first will provide leverage of our current resources. After the upcoming time sensitive, some of this is like repeated from last year, but I think last year it was like, please hire somebody, and now it's take advantage of it now that you've hired somebody.
Yeah. Now,
Next item would be, go ahead, please.
haven't we done that? Renewed that?
I think the idea is that it gets renewed
do
on
it
an
for
annual
next year.
basis.
Yeah, okay.
So this will just stay in here in perpetuity. Keep doing it, please.
Okay.
So maybe this should be energy. Now that baseline energy use data has been collected, establish and maintain a dashboard for the city website that tracks the monthly use of electricity and fossil fuels so the public can see the impact of policy changes aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions and natural resource consumption.
Would it make more sense, Mike, just in terms of the difficulty of actually assembling that information and the absence of staff to be able to do so, to just ask that it be done annually?
It could be tracked monthly, but printed annually?
Well,
Right?
yeah, it would probably have to be tracked monthly, but to ask somebody to post it
Yeah,
each month is asking a lot. And just doing it annually would at least provide like the database to be able to kind of assess whether we're moving forward. And it seems like annual would be sufficient.
Yeah. So we could say something like this information could be Are we liking that?
Okay, that
Yeah.
looks good.
yeah.
Okay. All right, this is basically the same thing as last year, revise the city tree code. More here about the EV charging stations, looking for external funding while engaging with community stakeholders. Then leaf power or gas powered leaf blowers.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that is the rec center just like dead for the time being. Like, does this need to come out?
I don't really know. Dylan, are you there?
What if
Yeah, I'm
What if we
there.
do-
I'm there. That's my understanding. I think there's some things still being worked on, but for all intents and purposes, I think it's slowed down. Yeah.
Crumbs.
Could we shift that to like consider, I'm looking at the wording from the one from the folks from earlier today, like where they said consider sustainability in the design and construction of the new, what we could say new public buildings, including the new public works and parks operations building.
Yeah,
Okay,
that would make sense to me.
Nicely done, Kate.
so
Just pivot.
I massaged that there. So what did they say? Instead of draw on sustainability principles, it
Consider?
was
Kate, can you read that again?
Yeah, I'm reading from my own notes, so it might be slightly different than their notes. Consider
okay.
sustainability in the design and construction. And I think I said just like of new public buildings, such as the Public Works and Parks Operations Building.
I just say new city buildings.
Yeah, new facilities out. Yeah.
And Dylan, do you know where that design process is for the Public Works building? It seems like it was pretty close to being completed when I talked to the architects like spring.
I don't know what percent they're at right now.
Uh-huh.
what is it? The Public Works building and the Operations building. I don't
Parks
think I remember which
Operations.
building.
I think they're the same, Public Works and Operation.
It's the same
Is
building.
that true? Yeah.
Well, and it
Okay.
seems like beyond just considering sustainability, it's kind of continuing to monitor the process to make sure that stuff doesn't get cut, sort of like what Greg was saying.
Yeah.
Ah,
You know, I don't know that we need, and I don't know that we need to add that, just to have it on our radar. I don't know.
keep our thumb on the scale.
Yeah. Don't forget about this.
Okay.
And Mike,
Next
I'm
up
not
would be
sure
draw.
about Kate. my impression is that we just got an announcement today from Darren that the December meeting was canceled and it will be delayed until January. And at that point, the consultants are basically going to be presenting their suggestions with regard to zoning. And I guess I could, at least keep the value of maintaining natural spaces and natural resources alive in that conversation. But it seems like a lot of that will have been decided by the consultants, and we're not likely to have much of an impact at that
Yeah,
point.
that makes sense.
Okay. So do you want to leave any mention of the waterfront development in here?
I'm not sure whether it makes sense. Dylan, what do you think?
I was my understanding the consultant was going to reach out to the groups as part of the process. What was you didn't think that was going to happen?
Well, I think my impression is that they're basically going to present their recommendations. We can certainly kind of participate in that process, but so far it seems like, they certainly take our thoughts into account. I'm just not sure how much of an impact, one person is going to have with regard to those kinds of issues.
I wonder if instead of saying concerns in decision making, we could say concerns in providing feedback about the waterfront development plans. Because like we aren't necessarily going to be involved in the decision making, right?
Right. I think providing feedback, that would be much better. I would feel that's a more kind of honest assessment of what I can do.
Okay, that reads well.
Yeah, thank you.
So we've got another one. I think this is a carryover from last year about resiliency within neighborhoods and the city at large.
And Dylan, is there a way that this could be rephrased so that it better match the kinds of things that you're going to be working on?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Because what that, yeah, I read this one and I was like, well, what is a climate resilience plan, and what would that look like? And it would be like a big project and probably require consultants and things like that. I mean, it's certainly something we're trying to do. I mean, we tried to get the generator. We're trying to make those better.
And do you have any plans to kind of reinstitute anything like the community mapping process?
Yes, that is another thing that's happening. Yeah, I think I mentioned that be 2 weeks ready. We're most likely going to use that. We haven't internally gotten enough momentum on it to get the website built and all the things, but that is still a hope.
Maybe it could be rephrased so that it said participate with the emergency management director to develop, to enhance neighborhood resilience. Would that make sense?
Sure, but yeah, probably would use the word director. That's not my title or anything, but
What's your title, Dylan?
oh, I'm just assistant to the city manager is my title.
Oh,
But
Emergency management, Dylan.
I just get all these special
right,
projects.
right, good.
come
Yeah,
on.
because I had a really interesting conversation with a woman who's very much involved with what's happening in Hillsdale a couple weeks ago. And there's so much happening, at least in some neighborhoods in Portland, that there's a lot to be learned from. But I think they're very much focusing on the whole issue of trust building and neighborhood resilience, identifying skills, et cetera. Exactly the stuff that was part of the community mapping process.
Yeah. That's one thing, getting community ready. And then internally, I have been really pushing. There's an emergency management plan that we desperately need to update as well. And I've been screaming for funding about that too. So,
Yeah.
So maybe something like this broader, like participate with emergency management planning process within the city in cooperation with city staff.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Kind of a coverall for whatever that happens to end up looking like.
I kind of like the management dude, but yeah.
yeah, that was fun.
I can I can put that in there. Let's see.
Dude.
That's your
All
official
right.
title. We need to get a lanyard for Dylan that reads that. All right.
With regard to number 10, Mike, I think that's kind of beyond our purview. It really seems it's like more like the Transportation Advisory Board, but
Yeah.
maybe rather than developing a comprehensive plan, kind of work with the Transportation Board to enhance Westland's bikeability and walkability, or however it could be said that is a more reasonable sentence.
Enhance.
Yeah, to enhance Westland as a bikeable and walkable city, something like that.
Westland's bikeability, and
Well,
walkability.
that's what I said. What I think just as a more bikeable and walkable city is probably less of a mouthful. Now, all of this does raise the question of like which of the goals that were kind of outlined earlier do we want to actually integrate into this, and which do we want to eliminate, or at least hold off on for now? Because I think that the kinds of things that parametrics presented to us really are doable, and I think that we ought to really take them seriously and include them in what we present to the city council.
I
Did
was
that presentation get to you, Dylan, for us to review here?
Yeah,
To have it up?
I forwarded it on already.
There it is.
Yeah, it's in the
Okay.
email.
Yep.
And I did want to add, there's a new form, a new annual report form. I included it, and it adds, the only difference is it adds an extra question that is 2025 goals and council direction. It says, what goals and recommendations to council would your group like to work towards advising council on in 2025? What specific direction on these goals and projects does your group need from council?
Mhm.
So it's
Could you
kind of-
reread the last question, Dylan?
Can you read it one more time? It's what goals and recommendations to council would your group like to work towards advising them on in 2025?
And then the next one was different.
Oh, it was the same. It was just kind of same question. What specific direction on those goals does your group need?
Okay,
From council.
so it isn't asking like whether the city council would provide
one here.
assistance. Okay.
So I can
Okay.
take that and I can drop that in here.
I'm thinking about the first of the city operation strategies that they talked about today, the one with the alternative fuel, electric and hybrid vehicles, like
Mhm.
developing a policy. I would wonder if that's something that we could help to like recommend or help with development of, similar to how we had the one we did earlier about electric appliances and things.
Kate,
I
do you
guess
mean, do you mean to write it up and say this would be a way to have it go?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that, but I don't know if that makes sense. But like, or present it to them, or it seems like one that we could help with because it would be similar in some ways to some of the stuff we've presented to them before.
well, I was confused about that because I'm not sure beyond what we've already done with the resolution that we presented, what more could be done.
It sounds like they're encouraging there to be like a more detailed policy, I guess.
Yeah, and Public Works is supposed to be working on that, kind of like as part of, they do like a replacement, they have like a replacement schedule for vehicles, and kind of incorporating that with electric vehicles is something I think they're doing as part of, I think it'll all come with the budget and the capital improvement plan, and in the budget is a vehicle replacement policy. So I think it'll all start coming together probably this spring when they do the budget.
And do you know, Dylan, whether that was going to spill over to things like furnaces and appliances?
That thing I'm thinking of specifically is just vehicles.
Just vehicles.
Yeah.
And the thing that they mentioned with regard to HVAC would certainly get to the furniture, to the furnaces.
Yeah.
I think that third one down. So I guess, Dylan, would you see the development of those policies, given the fact that the council has already passed the resolution, as work that would be primarily happening at the level of departments?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm not familiar enough with the facilities, which is parks and facilities, in terms of how they would. I think that would probably be in their capital improvement plan too. Yeah, and that's something I could kind of mention to them, to make sure they include it.
Yeah,
I think
because it
that's what
seems like
they.
in a way, it's like somebody basically, and it probably has to be somebody at the city level who's just kind of watching whether or not the resolutions that the council has passed are actually being integrated into day-to-day work.
Yeah, sorry, I had a kid come up.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, I was just thinking of that capital improvement plan again. That is how it would kind of all come together.
Yeah.
They have had like lighting upgrades in that, or facilities upgrades to the library and things like that. So that was probably be where like HVAC and the LED things that were being recommended might show up.
Actually, I am curious about a couple of things. First, the budget that's being worked on in the coming spring, that is a 2-year budget, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And is there actually anybody watching the various departments to see what they're implementing in terms of council resolutions?
Is that anyone say that question one more time?
I don't understand.
What was your question?
You wanted you to repeat your question.
Yeah.
I just want to know, is there actually anybody who has the time to watch to see if various departments are implementing what the city council passes?
Yeah, I mean they do. Everyone's aware. The right departments are aware of the resolutions and
All right.
Yeah. Not right now.
Don't want to assume anything. Good.
But at the same time, just thinking about that resolution, it would be nice to know that there is some evidence to suggest that when it's possible, and the tools are appropriate and affordable, that like the Parks Department is in fact getting electric leaf blowers, or particularly electric leaf blowers, I think can be substituted for gas-powered ones. Lawnmowers are another matter, but it might be possible to kind of purchase replacements for weed eaters and hedge trimmers, etc.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, is anything actually coming from that resolution having been passed?
Yeah. So maybe rather than kind of focusing on the question of policy, just really kind of monitoring the degree to which the city is taking that resolution into account with regard to purchases of new equipment.
Okay. I want to know how much more time we need to work on this, or if we want to let some of the other things on the agenda go because it's a quarter after.
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly, turn the remaining work on this into some back and forth emails.
Are you sure that's okay?
The other thing is, I can't remember like whether you put Dan's report and Tiffany's with regard to
It's on the agenda,
goal
yeah.
5.
Yes.
Because I sent those out, and I think those things really could be done via email.
Okay, let's do those by email then.
Yeah.
And that means we probably got another 10 minutes to look at this.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I guess we can start brainstorming this response here. Recommendations to council. I don't want to be snarky, but part of one of my recommendations and asks would be to participate more with our group.
So I guess, Mike, I'm wondering about how the 2025 goals are any different than what we just developed.
Yeah. So what issues do you think the council should focus on as they go about their priority setting? And what goals and recommendations to council would your group like to work towards advising council on in 2025?
How are those different? I guess I don't understand the language.
I don't see how they're different.
Dylan, has there been any discussion in the city about why this was added and what it is asking that's different than the prior ones?
They are kind of similar, I agree. I think the idea was they're trying to just get a better loop between council asking advisory groups what to work on, I think was the goal. I agree the wording is a little similar.
But aren't they?
I mean, I would say
So
tree
is the
code.
first
10
one
things that we
asking
talked
like
about the
what
same thing?
Wait, Kate?
Sorry to interrupt you, Greg.
Oh,
I
no
was
problem.
going to ask, like, is the question before it essentially asking what our goals are as a advisory board, and then the second was asking what we want the council to work on.
No, what issues do you think council should
Oh.
focus on? And then what goals and recommendations to council would your group like to work towards?
Yeah. Okay.
It sounds like the same thing.
I was trying to make it more different. I don't yeah, I don't know.
Just see above.
I think, I mean, I see it as the first one's a little more broad, like what should the city work on in total? And then the second one is like, what does this group want to work on themselves to advise council? And what direction can council give you to help you? That's how I'm reading it. It's a little more, the second one's just maybe a little more specific to the goals you want to focus on as a SAB.
It's those 10 things we just talked about. So I guess it's hard for me to understand the difference, I guess. Unless,
I mean, I get the
you're-
part of like, what do we need from council? That makes sense.
yeah.
We need engagement, like reciprocal engagement. That means probably us going to council and them coming to us. Going, not to get us moving backwards, but I feel like we haven't had like a really thorough amount of time to think about the recommendations from the group earlier. So I wonder if one of our goals would be to like consider, review and consider recommendations made by, what's the company's name? Parametrics?
Parametrics, yeah.
Parametrics.
So just so we have
So
it there,
we've-
it's not like they just handed us this and we're not including any of their goals. It's just like, it's the end of November. Maybe one of our goals is that we will spend time prioritizing their recommendations or something like that.
So we could expand this first item here, maybe.
Yeah. I think just something about like reviewing their specific recommendation, because they did give us some good stuff and it's not all included here,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, is it?
No.
Yeah, it just isn't. The timeline is pretty short for us to include it in something that's needed to be in a final form in a few weeks.
Could we do that by email?
I mean, I think we can word it in a way that just means that we're going to do that review next year,
Mhm.
How does this sound here? Parametrics has prepared a preliminary presentation on their recommendations. These should be
Yes.
reviewed and considered carefully in the coming year.
Yeah, I like that because it
Yeah.
acknowledges the work they did,
Yeah.
Darn, Mike, you're good.
Yeah.
I use a computer for a living. Type all day. I'm going to leave this in here. No one's going to stop me. I do like this idea of reciprocal engagement, though. I think we did well in, the occasions that we attended city council meetings, and, perhaps there's room to, present on behalf of our board at city council meetings a bit more in the coming year.
Or
Um,
simply asking for another working meeting at some point in the way
Yeah.
that we did. Because I think that was probably one of the most productive things that we've done since I've been on
Yeah.
SAB. And it really,
And-
I think, resulted in some positive changes. So I think, continuing at that would be good. I think that the other thing that hasn't really come up in terms of things that we hope to be working on is really making use of Tiffany's skills. And so I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at her op-ed, the draft with regard to using electric landscaping equipment. But yeah, I think it was, I want to get your feedback about it to give that back to her, but I think it could easily go into the tidings as is. And so I think really looking at how we can get information out to the public using the newspaper and the city newsletter as vehicles would be particularly valuable. And so I think kind of identifying that as a goal, given her skills and interest in really kind of doing this stuff, would be useful. And that really is,
Okay, yeah.
that is more of a goal for us than it is a goal for the city council.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I've got a note on that.
Have we made it clear that we'd like a backup so that when Leo or whoever it is can't come, that there be somebody else from city council? Or some way for us to give our notes to Leo to scan and present it, to other council members.
Mhm.
We've talked about that, I think, a couple of years ago, but just I don't know, I don't know what other counselors do or what's in place for in case somebody can't make it to, because there are lots of counselors, well, not very many, and lots of advisory boards, and there must be something in place for when somebody can't attend from the, can be a liaison from the council.
Do you know whether that's the case,
Right,
Dylan?
Sorry, what was the question?
Oh, if a city council member can't make a meeting of the advisory board to which they're assigned as liaison, what happens in other advisory boards?
There are not, I don't think they have, in some roles, they do have a backup. And especially they have liaisons to like other agencies.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's not a real like expectation that they come to every single meeting. I think there's an expectation that they like kind of keep up with what's going on, which I think Victoria's idea is a good one, at least in the interim. If somebody, when the notes are done, somebody maybe sends them directly to the counselor and says, here's what happened. Can you bring, because the counselors do kind of recap the advisory group at the council meeting. So
Okay.
if they had a little talking points of the highlights or something, that might be useful if they don't come.
The equivalence of a 3x5 card.
Yeah.
Well,
something a little more concise than our meeting notes.
Yeah, if we're more proactive and just sent them to the counselor instead of hoping they'll ask, that would work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that Dylan's, well, what you're just saying, like on a 3x5 card rather than the entire minutes. It would give them something to actually read from when they're reporting.
Yeah, highlights.
Yeah, it just keeps it on everyone's radar.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yep.
We can do that.
Another way
Into our goals.
Say it again, please, Victoria.
That should go into our goals for this section that we're working on now. Along with the reciprocal engagement, that one. And in there, let's see, yeah. Yeah, because it should be every meeting, because sometimes the council can only stay part of the meeting and then leaves. They don't know what happens after, you know, they may have been there for a section. So yeah, let's do it every meeting.
Okay, I like that.
When is our next meeting? What's the date? Is it like the 16th, or is it after the 18th meeting?
It's the 19th.
Oh, ours is the
It would be
19th.
it would be the 19th.
It would be the 19th, yeah. I'm just wondering, like, whether there's a way we might just, like, Mike, if you get this pulled together
Mhm.
by, let's say, the 12th or something, if we could maybe just have a half-hour meeting in which we would and just make suggestions and any final discussion about it before it is actually sent to the city council.
Yeah,
Since we oftentimes,
I think meeting once.
since we oftentimes
I think
don't
meeting
have
once
December
more
meeting.
to button it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe just for half an hour.
Cannot on the 12th unless we meet in the afternoon.
Well, let's find a date that works.
Any other day
Yeah,
that
I was
week.
gonna say, I actually have a conflict with the 19th anyway, so if we
Okay.
could just have a different meeting day, that would be helpful for me anyway.
Oh, all right.
I mean, I can try to get somebody
I
to
also
fill in,
have a
but it's always
conflict.
hard.
Well, then let's move it off the 19th.
My
Um,
conflict is that I will be baking too many cookies to attend a meeting.
Rachel has you working.
Oh, she's there too.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna get started this weekend on Christmas
Okay,
cookies.
Dylan, what's a good time for you? What day?
I don't know, I mean, would anyone want to do a daytime one, or does that just not work for some people?
Kate, is anybody out of school by then?
Are you looking, we're looking at before the 18th, right? Like the week
Yes, right,
before?
right.
Yes, this second week of December.
Everything's okay but the 12th for me.
Okay, I can do during the day, between like 9:30 and 12:30 on the 11th,
Okay, I could do
or
that.
11:30 on the 10th. So those would both be options for me.
Okay, Dylan?
I
Uh,
think Wednesday would work the best for me.
Wednesday's better, but I can do either.
Wednesday's good for me.
Okay, Wednesday, 9:30 to 10:30, but 12:30, but we don't need,
No, just pick a half hour in there. I drop off my daughter at 9 o'clock at preschool and I pick her up at 1. So I can be here sitting in front of a computer by 9:30.
let's say 10 to 11, let's allow an hour and not use that
Yeah.
much.
Right,
Okay.
that sounds good.
Okay, I like that.
Thank
That
you.
works for me.
Great.
And then we are not meeting on the 19th, correct?
Right, right.
Okay.
Oh, this is going to be mind blowing. I'm going to be home without any kids here. It doesn't happen often, and then it's like that'll be different. Okay, 10 to 11. I got it in my calendar. Okay.
Okay. So we're going to review the draft and the goal 5 by email, and perhaps touch on that afterwards on our December 11th meeting.
Right.
I'm looking at that as an action item, actually. And then Greg, that just leaves the Fifth Street development update.
Yeah, and what I learned is that Mr. Schultz is pretty committed to the design that he has right now. He's incorporating a variety of design elements that kind of touch upon sustainability, like really going for as close to net zero as he can make, solar panels, the creation of pedestrian friendly street. But he is very much committed to the idea of having the townhouses basically almost be a backdrop for the hotel. And he's seemingly very committed to building the hotel on the site of the old ponds, and has gotten information from the geologist who had studied it, who said that it would not be subject to liquefaction, which was one of my major concerns about it. So it was an interesting conversation. It's hard to say where it's going to go, and I have no idea what the city is going to do with regard to recommendations as it relates to the kind of use that can happen, the zoning there, whether it will go from what it currently is industrial use to natural resources. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But the city, public opinion has been that it really should be used. It should be zoned natural resource. I did have a question see if I can call it back. I'll ask Dylan another time.
Then I would say that we have got our action items, which is the 2 emails, and we are ready to adjourn.
Oh, I actually just remembered what the question was.
Oh, good.
Dylan, at the November 18 meeting, did City Council and Planning
Commission.
meet together for their own goal setting?
They met together on a couple specific topics, and I just noticed Councilor Groner's here. He might be able to speak to it more. I don't know if it was goal setting. It was specific about housing, I think.
And I think we had hoped to actually talk to them about the tree holding goal 5, and Dan's stuff I think would be really good to present. But it struck me in speaking with Dan that it made much more sense to have a conversation with Dylan before doing anything at the city council. And I'm thinking that probably if they didn't make any decision with regard to tree code, waiting until January or February to speak with city council about that would make sense.
There was no discussion about the tree code. It was mostly about changes in the code relating to things like building height,
Building height, okay.
parking spaces.
Yeah. And has there been any consideration just about density of housing on a single lot? It's like one of the things that's happening down here, like where I am down by Volp Street, is that almost no trees could be planted where the houses have been built. There's
I
no
don't think there
space
was
for
a
trees.
direct reference to density, but I think there was some discussion of smaller lot sizes.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank you.
Dylan, does that correspond to your memory?
I wasn't at that meeting, so I don't remember. I wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good. So that's the end of my questions. Sorry, Victoria.
Oh, that's fine.
We
Okay.
bring it to an end.
We don't usually go over time at least. So I just thought we should.
One last comment. I think there is a recognition that increasing the amount of housing in the city, which is one of the goals, is in some sense in conflict with preserving trees. And that's something, a balance we'll have to work out.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad it was discussed.
Yeah.
More trees along the streets. Put them somewhere. Okay.
Tree's
Uh,
good.
All right. I think we're ready to adjourn.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
All.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Here,
Yeah.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Sure.